When a billionaire's daughter falls for her humble Korean driver, her father's pride ignites a war that brings a charming predator to their doorstep, but the man they underestimated will risk everything to expose a deadly plot. Proof that love recognizes no class and save the woman who gave him a reason to fight back. Before we dive into this incredible story, do me a huge favor. Smash that subscribe button right now, hit the like button, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. Are you Team Jaehyun or were you suspicious of Min-jae from the start? I want to hear from you. Now, let's get into the story. 3 months earlier, Faye hadn't known Kim Jaehyun existed. She'd been 23, freshly graduated from Stanford with a business degree she'd never use, living in a golden cage built by her father's billions. Horace ran his empire with an iron fist, controlling shipping routes across 3 continents, and he ran his daughter's life the same way. Every friend was vetted. Every outing was monitored. Every decision had to pass through him first. Faye had learned to smile through the suffocation. Then Horace hired Jaehyun. The day they met, Jaehyun arrived at the mansion in a crisp black suit, his resume modest but impeccable. Horace had barely glanced at him during the interview. You drive. You don't speak unless spoken to. You protect my daughter with your life, and you keep your distance. Understood? Yes, sir, Jaehyun had replied, bowing slightly. Horace waved him away like he was dismissing a servant. But Faye had been watching from the top of the staircase, curious about the quiet man with careful eyes and calloused hands. There was something different about him. Something that didn't fit the usual mold of employees her father hired, people who bowed and scraped and said exactly what Horace wanted to hear. Their first real conversation happened 2 weeks later. Faye had been scheduled for a charity luncheon across town, one of those tedious events where wealthy people wrote checks and congratulated themselves for caring. She slid into the back seat of the sedan, already exhausted, and Jaehyun pulled smoothly into traffic. For 10 minutes, silence filled the car. Then Faye spoke. Do you ever get tired of it? Jaehyun glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Tired of what, Miss Faye? Pretending. Going through the motions. Doing what people expect instead of what you actually want. He was quiet for a moment, considering. Most drivers would have given her some safe, neutral response. But Jaehyun said, every single day. Faye leaned forward, surprised. Really? Really? He merged onto the highway, his voice steady. But I think most people feel that way. The difference is whether you do something about it or just accept it as the price of security. And which are you? Jaehyun smiled slightly. Still figuring that out. Something shifted between them in that moment. A connection sparked, fragile but real. After that, their conversations grew longer. Deeper. Jaehyun told her about growing up in Busan, about working 3 jobs to put himself through university, about the business degree he'd earned and the corporate career he'd walked away from when he realized it was crushing his soul. Faye told him about the loneliness of being Horace's daughter, about feeling like a trophy on a shelf, beautiful and useless. You're not useless, Jaehyun said one evening as they sat in traffic. You're just trapped. There's a difference. Is there? Faye asked bitterly. Yes, because trapped means there's still a chance of getting free. 6 weeks into his employment, Jaehyun did something no one had ever done before. He asked Faye what she wanted. They'd been driving back from another pointless event, and Faye was staring out the window, watching the city lights blur past. Miss Faye, Jaehyun said carefully, if you could do anything right now, without worrying about your father or obligations or what people would think, what would it be? Faye blinked. No one had ever asked her that. I don't know. Think about it. She did. And then, surprising herself, she said, I want tteokbokki from a street cart. The cheap kind that costs $3 and tastes better than anything in a 5-star restaurant. Jaehyun met her eyes in the mirror. Then let's get some. My father would. Your father isn't here. 20 minutes later, they were standing at a street food cart in Koreatown, laughing as Faye fumbled with chopsticks and got sauce on her designer dress. Jaehyun showed her how to pick up the rice cakes properly, his hand briefly covering hers to adjust her grip. The touch lasted maybe 3 seconds, but Faye felt it like an electric current. This is the best thing I've ever eaten, she declared, her mouth half full. Jaehyun grinned. Better than the lobster at that charity dinner? Infinitely better. That lobster had no soul. This has soul. You're ridiculous. You're smiling. He was. And Faye realized she was too, genuinely happy for the first time in months. They started sneaking out regularly after that. Quick detours on the way home from events. Late-night drives when Faye couldn't sleep and would text Jae-hyun to meet her at the side gate. They'd park overlooking the city and talk for hours about everything and nothing. Faye learned that Jae-hyun loved classical music but had never been to a symphony because tickets were too expensive growing up. She learned that he read philosophy books and could quote Marcus Aurelius from memory. She learned that he'd turned down a six-figure job offer because it would have meant compromising his values. Jae-hyun learned that Faye wanted to open a foundation for underprivileged students, but her father had dismissed the idea as a waste of time. He learned that she could speak 4 languages, but had never been allowed to travel alone. He learned that beneath the polished exterior was someone achingly real, desperate to break free. One night, parked on a cliff overlooking the ocean, Faye turned to him and said, "I think I'm falling for you." Jae-hyun's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Miss Faye. Just Faye. Please. When it's just us, can I just be Faye?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw the war happening behind his eyes. The part of him that wanted to pull her close fighting the part that knew how impossible this was. "This can't work," he said quietly. "Your father would destroy me." "I don't care." "You should. I'm nobody. I drive cars for a living." I'm a person," Faye interrupted. "Just like you. And I'm so tired of pretending that the things that make me happy don't matter." Jae-hyun reached across the console and took her hand. His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. "You matter to me. More than you should. More than is safe. Then let's be unsafe." They sat there in the dark, hands intertwined, both of them knowing they were about to cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "One chance," Jae-hyun finally said. "If this gets too complicated, if it puts you in danger, I walk away. Deal?" Deal. They were lying to themselves, and they both knew it. Neither of them would be able to walk away now. For 3 beautiful, stolen months, they existed in secret. Faye had never been happier. She glowed in a way that made the household staff whisper and smile. Even her father noticed, though he attributed it to maturity rather than the truth. Jae-hyun was careful. Always professional in public. Always maintaining proper distance when others were watching. But in private, in those stolen moments, he looked at Faye like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. They were in love. Completely, recklessly, impossibly in love. And then Horace saw them holding hands outside the mansion, and everything shattered. The next morning, Faye was summoned to her father's study. She found him standing by the window, his back rigid with fury. He didn't turn around when she entered. "Sit down." Faye sat, her stomach churning with dread. "I saw you last night," Horace said, his voice dangerously calm. "With the driver." Faye's mouth went dry. "Father." He whirled around, and the rage on his face made her flinch. Don't you dare try to explain this to me. My daughter, sneaking around with the help like some cheap romance novel. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Faye?" Horace slammed his hand on the desk. "Are you sleeping with him? That's none of your business. Everything you do is my business. I built this empire so you could have the best of everything, so you could marry someone worthy of our name, and you repay me by throwing yourself at a man who drives cars for a living." Faye stood up, her own anger finally breaking through. "Jae-hyun is worth 10 of anyone you'd pick for me. He's kind and intelligent, and he actually cares about what I want. He's a driver." Horace roared. "He's nothing. And the fact that you can't see that proves how foolish you've become. You're the one who's foolish if you think money and status are all that matter." Horace's face went cold. "You will end this. Today. Or I will end it for you. You can't control who I love. Watch me." An hour later, Jae-hyun was called to the study. Faye tried to follow, but Horace had 2 security guards physically bar her from entering. She pressed her ear to the door, heart pounding. "Do you know why you're here?" she heard her father ask. "I can guess, sir." Jae-hyun's voice was calm, steady. "Then you know this ends now. Whatever delusion my daughter has about you, it's over. With respect, sir, Faye is an adult. She can make her own choices." The sound of something hitting would made Faye jump. When Horace spoke again, his voice dripped with contempt. Let me make something clear to you. You are an employee. Easily replaceable. Utterly insignificant. The only reason I'm not having you arrested for taking advantage of my daughter is because I don't want the scandal. But if you ever speak to her again, if you ever so much as look at her, I will destroy you so completely that you'll wish I'd just killed you instead. Silence. Then Jaehyun said quietly, "Is that all, sir?" No, the sound of a drawer opening. Bills rustling. "This is $50,000. Take it. Disappear. Find a new city, a new life. Or don't take it, and I'll make sure you never work again. Your choice." More silence. Faye held her breath. "I don't want your money," Jaehyun finally said. "Everyone wants money. Don't be stupid." "I'm not. But I also know that some things can't be bought." Horace laughed, cruel and mocking. How noble. How incredibly naive. "Fine. Refuse the money. But you're fired. Pack your things and get out of my house. And if I find out you've contacted Faye, the consequences will be severe. Do you understand?" "Perfectly, sir." Footsteps approached the door. Faye barely had time to step back before it opened and Jaehyun emerged. His face was carefully blank, but she saw the tension in his jaw, the way his hands were clenched into fists. Their eyes met for just a second. In that second, Faye saw everything he couldn't say. Then Horace appeared in the doorway. Faye. Inside. Now. She wanted to run after Jaehyun. Wanted to scream that this wasn't over, that her father couldn't win. But the security guards were still there, and Horace was watching her with cold calculation. She stepped into the study. Horace closed the door. "That's done. Now we're going to discuss your future. The correct future. Not this foolishness. You had no right. I had every right. I'm your father. And I'm trying to protect you from making the biggest mistake of your life. The biggest mistake of my life is listening to you." Horace's hand shot out and gripped her arm. Not violently, but firm enough to make his point. "You think you love him. You think this is some fairy tale where the princess runs off with the stable boy and lives happily ever after. But real life doesn't work that way, Faye. Real life is hard and cruel, and it chews up little girls who make stupid choices." Faye wrenched her arm free. "Let me make my own choices then. Let me fail or succeed on my own terms." No, Horace walked back to his desk, suddenly looking older. Tired. Because when you fail, it won't just be who suffers. It'll be me. Our family name. Everything I've built. And I won't allow that. "So what? You're just going to lock me up? Force me to marry whoever you pick?" Horace looked at her with something that might have been sadness if you were capable of it. "I'm going to save you from yourself. And someday, you'll thank me." He dismissed her with a wave. Faye stumbled back to her room, tears streaming down her face. She grabbed her phone and called Jaehyun. It rang once before going straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. Panic clawed at her chest. She texted him, *, please answer. Please, *. No response. She tried calling from different numbers. Nothing. Finally, at midnight, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. *, I'm sorry. Your father is right. This was a mistake. Please don't contact me again. JH*. Faye read the message 15 times, each time hoping the words would change. They didn't. She threw her phone across the room and buried her face in her pillow, sobbing so hard she thought she might break apart. In a modest apartment across town, Jaehyun sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his own phone. The message he'd just sent made him feel sick. But Horace had been clear. Stay away or watch Faye's life be destroyed as punishment. Jaehyun had seen men like Horace before. Men who would burn the world down rather than admit they were wrong. So he'd lied. Sent the message. Cut the cord. Because he loved Faye too much to let her father hurt her because of him. He deleted her number from his phone, packed his few belongings, and left the city before dawn. Behind him, he left his heart. 2 weeks later, Horace called Faye down to breakfast with unusual cheerfulness. She came down wearing the emotional armor she'd constructed since Jaehyun left, polite mask, dead eyes, mechanical movements. Good morning, darling, Horace said, gesturing to a place setting. I have someone I'd like you to meet. A young man stood from the table, and Faye's first thought was that he looked like he'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. His smile was practiced, perfect, and completely empty. "Faye, this is Choi Min-jae," Horace announced proudly. His family owns the largest telecommunications company in Seoul. "Min-jae, my daughter." Min-jae extended his hand. "It's an honor, Miss Horace. Your father has told me so much about you." Faye shook his hand limply. His grip was firm, but somehow felt cold. "I'm sure he has," she said flatly. Min-jae seemed unbothered by her lack of enthusiasm. He pulled out her chair with practiced courtesy. "Please sit. I'd love to get to know you better." The breakfast was torture. Horace dominated the conversation, listing Min-jae's accomplishments like he was reading from a resume. Harvard MBA. Fluent in 5 languages. Sitting on the board of 3 major corporations before turning 30. "Min-jae is exactly the kind of man who understands our world," Horace said, beaming. "Someone who can appreciate what you bring to a partnership." Faye pushed eggs around her plate. "I'm not looking for a partnership. Every successful woman needs the right partner," Min-jae interjected smoothly. "Someone who can match her ambition and elevate her position." "I don't have ambition. I have a father who thinks he can arrange my life like a business deal." Awkward silence fell over the table. Horace's smile tightened. "Faye, don't be rude. I'm being honest." She stood abruptly. "Excuse me. I'm not feeling well." She left before either man could respond, ignoring her father's angry voice calling after her. In her room, she pulled out the burner phone she'd bought secretly, hoping against hope that Jae-hyun might have contacted her through some other means. Nothing. He'd vanished completely, like he'd never existed at all. But Min-jae didn't vanish. Over the next month, he appeared everywhere. At charity events Horace dragged her to. At family dinners. At the country club. Always polite, always charming, always making her skin crawl in ways she couldn't quite articulate. "Give him a chance," Horace urged repeatedly. "He's perfect for you. He's perfect for your business interests, you mean?" Same thing. It wasn't, but Faye had learned that arguing with her father was pointless. What she didn't know was that in the shadows of Min-jae's perfect facade, something dark was growing. In his penthouse office overlooking the city, Min-jae sat across from his personal assistant, a sharp-eyed man named Park Ji-hoon. "She rejected dinner again," Ji-hoon reported. Min-jae's jaw tightened. "Stubborn. Perhaps you're moving too fast. Give her time to." "I don't have time." Min-jae stood and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "My family's company is hemorrhaging money. The old man hid the debt well, but it's there. Millions in bad investments, billions in potential losses if our partners find out. And marrying Horace's daughter solves this how?" Min-jae turned, and Ji-hoon saw the cold calculation in his eyes. "Horace controls shipping routes our company desperately needs. Once I marry Faye, I'll have leverage. Access. And when the old man has an unfortunate accident, heart attack, perhaps very common in men his age, I'll be positioned to take control of his empire through my grieving widow." Ji-hoon shifted uncomfortably. "That's extremely risky." "Everything worth having is risky." Min-jae poured himself whiskey. "Besides, Faye is weak. Emotional. She'll cling to the first person who offers her comfort after her father dies. And I'll be right there, the devoted husband, ready to help her navigate her grief and her inheritance." "What about the driver?" "I heard. The driver is gone." Horace made sure of it. "Faye is vulnerable right now, which makes her perfect." Min-jae drained his glass. "I'll court her properly for another month. Then I'll propose. Horace will accept on her behalf if necessary. The wedding will happen within 6 months, and within a year, I'll own everything Horace built." "And if Faye refuses?" Min-jae smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. "Then we'll have to convince her another way." While Min-jae plotted, Jae-hyun was trying to rebuild his life 200 miles away in Sacramento. He'd found work at a corporate consulting firm, using his business degree for the first time in years. The money was good. The work was meaningless. Every night, he stared at his phone, fighting the urge to call Faye. To explain. To beg forgiveness for the lie he'd sent. But Horace's threat echoed in his mind. Stay away or watch her suffer. So he stayed away and suffered instead. He didn't know that Faye was drowning, that she spent most nights crying into her pillow, that she'd lost 15 pounds because food tasted like ash, that she was barely holding herself together. He didn't know that she needed him desperately. And he didn't know that danger was circling closer every day. The breaking point came on a Friday evening. Horace had insisted Faye attend another dinner with Min-jae, this time at an exclusive restaurant where privacy was guaranteed and expectations were clear. Faye wore black, mourning her own life. Min-jae was waiting at a corner table, looking disgustingly pleased with himself. "You look beautiful." "I look like someone being forced to attend her own execution." He laughed like she'd made a joke. "Your honesty is refreshing. Most women play games. I'm not playing anything. I don't want to be here. Yet here you are." He poured wine she didn't touch. "Your father tells me you've been depressed lately. Since that driver left." Faye's head snapped up. "Don't. I'm just saying, I understand it must have been humiliating to develop feelings for someone so beneath you. But these things happen. Proximity, loneliness, a kind word from the wrong person." He reached across the table. "The good news is you don't have to settle for that anymore. You can have a real relationship with someone appropriate." Faye jerked her hand back. "Jaehyun was more appropriate than you'll ever be." Min-jae's smile finally cracked. "Careful." "Or what? You'll tell my father I'm being difficult?" "He already knows." "You'll stop pursuing me?" "Please do. You think you have choices here." Min-jae leaned back, his expression hardening. "You don't. Your father wants this marriage. My family wants this merger. What you want is irrelevant. Then you're wasting your time because I'll never say yes. We'll see." Something in his tone made ice run down Faye's spine. She stood abruptly. "I'm leaving." "Sit down, Faye." "No." She grabbed her purse and walked out, ignoring the stares from other diners. Outside, she called for a car service instead of using one of her father's drivers. She didn't trust anyone in Horace's employ anymore. The car arrived quickly. She slid into the back seat, gave her address, and closed her eyes. She didn't notice when the car turned the wrong direction until they were already on the highway heading out of the city. "Excuse me, you're going the wrong way," she said, leaning forward. The driver didn't respond. "Hello? I said you're going the wrong way." The doors clicked, locked from the driver's control. Panic flooded Faye's system. She grabbed her phone, but before she could dial, the driver spoke in a flat, emotionless voice. "Put the phone down or this gets worse." "Who are you? Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere quiet. Don't make this difficult." Faye's hands shook as she weighed her options. Jump from a moving car on the highway? Fight a man twice her size? Scream for help no one would hear? She tried calling anyway. The driver pulled over hard, got out and wrenched open the back door. He grabbed the phone from her hand and crushed it under his heel. "I warned you," he said coldly. He zip-tied her wrists and ankles before she could react, then duct-taped her mouth. Tears streamed down Faye's face as he returned to the driver's seat and pulled back onto the highway. They drove for an hour. Maybe two. Faye lost track of time, lost in waves of terror. Finally, they stopped at what looked like an abandoned warehouse. The driver hauled her out and carried her inside despite her attempts to struggle. He dumped her in a small, windowless room with a single chair. "Someone will bring you food and water," he said. "Don't do anything stupid." The door slammed shut. A lock clicked. Faye was alone in the dark, trapped, terrified, and completely helpless. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Horace was receiving a visitor. Min-jae arrived looking appropriately concerned. "Mr. Horace, I just heard. Is there any news?" Horace looked haggard, older than his 60 years. "Nothing." She left the restaurant, got in a car, and vanished. "The police are investigating, but they have no leads." "This is terrible. Faye is such a sweet girl." "To think someone would," Min-jae shook his head. "Is there anything I can do?" "Anything at all. Unless you can find my daughter, no. I have resources. Private investigators. Let me make some calls. We'll find her." Horace gripped Min-jae's shoulder. "Thank you. If she were here, I know she'd appreciate your concern." "I care about Faye deeply, sir. I was hoping, after tonight, to ask your permission to propose. Now I just want her back safely." Horace's eyes actually misted. "You're a good man, Min-jae. Exactly the kind of person Faye needs. I was wrong to let that driver anywhere near her. If I'd been more careful, if I'd protected her better, this never would have happened. Min-jae made sympathetic noises while inside. He smiled. Everything was going exactly according to plan. Back in Sacramento, Jae-hyun was working late when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Is this Kim Jae-hyun? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Who's asking? My name is Diana. I work as a housekeeper for the Horace family. You don't know me, but I know you. I know what happened with Faye. Jae-hyun's heart stopped. What about her? She's been kidnapped. Taken 3 hours ago. The police are involved, but they're not telling anyone the whole truth. What truth? That Horace received a ransom demand, but it doesn't make sense. The kidnapper isn't asking for money. They're asking for Horace to publicly announce Faye's engagement to Choi Min-jae. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Min-jae took her. I can't prove it, but yes, I think so. And I think he's going to hurt her if Horace doesn't comply. But you should also know something else. Min-jae has been telling people at the house that once he marries Faye, Horace won't be around much longer. He talks about it like it's inevitable. He's planning to kill Horace. I believe so. Why are you telling me this? Diana's voice softened. Because I've watched Faye these last 2 months. I've seen her cry herself to sleep every night. I've seen her waste away missing you. Whatever Horace told you, whatever threat he made, Faye loves you. And right now, she needs someone who actually gives a damn about her to save her life. Jae-hyun was already grabbing his keys. Where is she? I don't know. But I know Min-jae owns properties all over the state. Warehouses, storage facilities, investment properties. I can get you a list. Send it to this number. I'm on my way. Mr. Kim? Be careful. Min-jae is dangerous. So am I when someone threatens the woman I love. He hung up and headed for his car, his mind already racing through possibilities. 3 hours later, Diana's list came through. 15 properties. Too many to search quickly, but Jae-hyun had spent years in corporate strategy. He knew how to narrow options. He cross-referenced Min-jae's properties with locations far enough from the city to avoid attention, but close enough for quick access. That eliminated 8. He removed properties with active leases or employees on site. Down to 4. He called in a favor from an old friend who worked in digital security. Within an hour, they'd hacked traffic cameras and found footage of a black sedan matching the description of Faye's car heading east on the highway. 2 properties left. Jae-hyun chose the abandoned warehouse based on pure instinct and started driving. He arrived just before midnight. The building looked deserted, but fresh tire tracks in the dirt told a different story. Jae-hyun parked a quarter-mile away and approached on foot. Years ago, before he'd walked away from corporate life, he'd done a stint in the Korean military. Those skills came back now as he moved silently through the shadows. He found a side entrance, lockpicked it with tools he'd grabbed from his car, and slipped inside. The warehouse was maze-like, full of old equipment and storage containers. Jae-hyun moved slowly, listening. Then he heard it. A muffled sound. Almost like crying. He followed the noise to a locked door. Faye, he whispered. The crying stopped. Frantic thumping against the door. Hold on. I'm getting you out. The lock was industrial strength. Jae-hyun looked around and found a crowbar among the equipment. It took 3 tries, but the door finally splintered open. Faye was on the floor, wrists and ankles bound, tape over her mouth. Her eyes went wide when she saw him. Jae-hyun was next to her in seconds, carefully removing the tape and cutting the zip ties with a utility knife. You're safe, he murmured. I've got you. You're safe. The moment she was free, Faye threw herself into his arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. I thought I'd never see you again, she gasped between sobs. I thought you hated me. Never. God, Faye, never. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I left. Your father threatened to destroy your life if I stayed, and I was too much of a coward to fight him. You came back. Of course I came back. Did you really think I could stay away when you needed me? They held each other for a long moment. Then Jae-hyun pulled back. We need to move. Whoever took you might come back. It was Min-jae. It had to be. He said things at dinner about how I didn't have choices, how this marriage was happening whether I wanted it or not. I know. And I think he's planning to kill your father once he gets access to the company. Faye's face went white. We have to warn him. We will. But first we get you somewhere safe and we get proof. What kind of proof? A confession. Jaehyun pulled out his phone and handed it to her. Call Min-jae. Tell him you'll agree to marry him if he lets you go. Sounds scared. Desperate. Get him to admit what he's done. He's too smart for that. Maybe. But he's also arrogant. Arrogant people make mistakes when they think they've won. Faye took the phone with shaking hands and dialed Min-jae's number. He answered on the second ring. Hello. He sounded surprised. It's Faye. She let her voice crack. Please let me go. A pause. Then Min-jae's voice, smooth as oil. Faye. I'm so relieved to hear from you. Where are you? Are you hurt? You know exactly where I am. You put me here. I don't know what you're talking about. I've been with your father all evening, helping search for you. Stop lying. I know it was you. I know everything, the kidnapping, the plan to marry me, the plan to kill my father. Min-jae's tone changed, humor creeping in. Those are serious accusations. Do you have proof? I don't need proof. I know. Knowing and proving are very different things, Faye. And right now, the only thing you can prove is that you're missing, and I'm the concerned suitor helping your father find you. So let me make this simple. You can come home, agree to marry me, and your father lives. Or you can keep fighting, and when I eventually get what I want anyway, and I will, your father dies slowly and painfully as punishment for your stubbornness. You're insane. I'm practical. There's a difference. He sighed. I gave you every chance to do this the easy way. I was patient. Charming. I played the role of the perfect gentleman. But you couldn't see past your ridiculous infatuation with that worthless driver, and now we're here. Jaehyun is worth 100 of you. Is he? Then where is he? Where was he when you needed him? Oh right, he abandoned you because your father threw money at him. Some great love story. Faye looked at Jaehyun, who was recording everything on a second phone. He nodded. You're right, Faye said, forcing her voice to break. Jaehyun left. And my father only cares about himself. No one actually wants me. They just want what I represent. Finally, you understand. So I'll do it. I'll marry you. Just please, don't hurt my father. There's my smart girl. Now here's what happens next. You stay where you are. I'll come get you personally in the morning. We'll stage a dramatic rescue, and you'll be so grateful that you'll agree to my proposal in front of your father and the media. Any deviation from this script, and the old man has an accident. Understood. Understood. Good. Get some rest, Faye. Tomorrow is the beginning of our beautiful future together. He hung up. Faye dropped the phone like it was burning her. Did you get it? Jaehyun played back the recording. Every damning word was crystal clear. We've got him, he said grimly. Now we take this to the police and your father. They left the warehouse and drove straight to the nearest police station. The officer on duty initially didn't believe their story until Jaehyun played the recording. Then everything moved fast. Within an hour, a team was mobilized. Warrants were issued. And Jaehyun was calling Horace directly. Who is this? Horace answered, his voice raw from stress. It's Kim Jaehyun. I have Faye. She's safe. But you need to listen to me very carefully because your life is in danger. You? You took my daughter. No. Choi Min-jae took your daughter. And he's planning to kill you once he gets access to your company through marriage to Faye. I have proof. I'm sending it now. Jaehyun forwarded the recording. Silence on the other end as Horace listened. When he came back on the line, his voice was shaking. Where is Faye? At the police station giving her statement. She's asking for you. I'm on my way. Horace arrived 30 minutes later, bursting through the station doors like a man possessed. He found Faye wrapped in a blanket, talking to detectives, and pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I was trying to protect you and I almost got you killed. Faye clung to him, crying. I know, Dad. I know. Over Faye's shoulder, Horace saw Jaehyun standing back, giving them space. Their eyes met. Horace gently released his daughter and walked over to the young man he'd fired, threatened, and humiliated. Then he bowed. A full, formal bow of deep respect. I was wrong about you, Horace said quietly. I judged you by your job, your bank account, the size of your house. I didn't see your character, your courage. The fact that you loved my daughter enough to walk away when you thought it would protect her, and loved her enough to come back when she needed you. I was a fool. And I'm sorry. Jae-hyun straightened. You were a father trying to protect his daughter. I understood that, even when I hated it. You saved her life. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Horace extended his hand. Jae-hyun shook it. I have one question for you, Horace said. Do you love my daughter? With everything I am. And will you protect her? Not just from kidnappers and con men, but from loneliness? From feeling like she doesn't matter? From all the things I failed to protect her from. Every day for the rest of my life, if she'll let me. Horace nodded slowly. Then he looked at Faye. He has my blessing. If you want him. Faye crossed the room and took Jae-hyun's hand. I want him. Min-jae was arrested that night at his penthouse. The recording was enough for charges of kidnapping, conspiracy to commit murder, and extortion. His family's company fell apart within weeks once their financial fraud was exposed. Horace offered Jae-hyun a position as VP of Operations with a salary that made Jae-hyun dizzy. But more importantly, he offered respect. Trust. A genuine apology for the cruelty he'd shown. Faye and Jae-hyun were married 6 months later in a ceremony that was intimate and perfect. Horace walked Faye down the aisle with tears in his eyes, genuinely happy for the first time in years. Take care of her, he whispered to Jae-hyun at the altar. Always, Jae-hyun promised. Before we wrap this up, if you're loving this story, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what you thought. Did Min-jae get what he deserved? Should Horace have trusted Jae-hyun from the start? I want to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe because we have more incredible stories coming your way. 5 years passed. Jae-hyun built a career that had nothing to do with being Horace's son-in-law and everything to do with his own brilliance. He became CEO of his own consulting firm, advising companies across 3 continents. Faye finally opened her foundation for underprivileged students. In its first year, it provided scholarships to over 500 kids who otherwise would never have afforded college. And Horace became grandpa to a beautiful little girl named Diana, after the housekeeper who'd saved the day. He spoiled his granddaughter shamelessly and told anyone who would listen that his son-in-law was the smartest man he knew. One evening, the family gathered for dinner at the mansion that had once been Faye's prison. Now it was filled with laughter, warmth, and love. Diana the younger was sitting on her grandfather's lap, making him wear a plastic tiara while she told him about her day at kindergarten. Faye watched them, her hand in Jae-hyun's, and marveled at how drastically things had changed. What are you thinking? Jae-hyun asked softly. That I almost lost all of this because my father was too proud and I was too scared. But you didn't. We fought for it. We did. She squeezed his hand. Thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I thought you had. I could never give up on you. You're my whole world. Across the table, Horace caught the exchange and smiled. He'd spent so many years measuring worth in dollars and power. He'd almost sacrificed his daughter's happiness on the altar of status. But he'd learned, changed, grown. Love, he discovered, didn't follow the rules of class or economics. It created its own value, its own legacy. And that legacy was sitting at his table, thriving and beautiful. Later, as everyone said their goodbyes, Horace pulled Jae-hyun aside. I never thanked you properly, he said. For saving my daughter. For loving her. For being a better man than I was. Jae-hyun smiled. You're a pretty good man yourself now, you know. I'm trying. It's harder than it looks, being humble. Tell me about it. They laughed, and in that moment, the last of the old wounds healed. Outside, under the stars, Faye stood with her daughter in her arms, watching the city lights twinkle below. Mommy, tell me the story again, Diana pleaded. Which story, sweetheart? How you and Daddy fell in love. Faye smiled. Once upon a time, there was a girl who lived in a golden cage. She had everything money could buy, but nothing that actually mattered. Then one day, a brave and kind man became her driver, and he showed her what it meant to truly live. Her father didn't approve because the man wasn't rich or powerful. But the man loved the girl anyway, even when loving her was dangerous. And when she needed him most, he crossed mountains to save her. And they lived happily ever after? They did. Because they chose each other every single day, no matter what anyone else said. Diana yawned. I want a love like that someday. You will, baby. And when you find it, don't let anyone tell you it's not good enough. Love doesn't follow rules about money or status. Real love just is. Jaehyun joined them on the balcony, wrapping his arms around his wife and daughter. Bedtime for little princesses, he announced. But I'm not tired. Yes, you are. As they walked inside together, a family built on courage and second chances, the city stretched out below them, full of possibility. Love had won. Not because it was easy or safe or approved by society, but because two people had been brave enough to fight for it. And in the end, that bravery had created something far more valuable than any fortune. It had created home. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you made it to the end, you're amazing and I appreciate you so much. Drop a comment and let me know what part hit you the hardest. Was it when Jaehyun rescued Faye? When Horace finally apologized? When Minjae got arrested? Tell me everything. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We've got so many more incredible stories coming your way. Until next time, remember that real love is worth fighting for. See you in the next one.